To order. Clerk, would you read your compliance?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me. Okay, read your compliance.
In accordance with the South Carolina Code of Laws 1976, Section 30-4-80D as amended, notification of the meeting and the meeting agenda were posted at least 24 hours prior to the meeting on the County Council building at a publicly accessible place on the county website, and a copy of the agenda was provided to the local news media and all persons or organizations requesting notifications.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Fulgram?
Mr. Chairman, members of council, you have on your agenda presentations from the auditor, treasurer, and the election and voter registration board. Once you conclude those, if there's any time remaining, we'd be happy to give you an update on the current status of the budget and get any direction you may have for us after that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
First up is our auditor. Hello, Miss Carroll. How are you?
Good. How are you today?
Fine.
So I've never done one of these before.
Well, that's why we're here.
Yes, sir. So I was going to start off telling a little bit about what the auditor does, because I know a lot of people don't really understand all the roles that we have. Obviously, our mission is to ensure that all taxpayers are fairly taxed in accordance with the laws of South Carolina and the South Carolina Department of Revenue. In order to do this, our responsibilities include preparing and assembling information of real estate and personal property to establish a fair market value, computing and assessing property values, applying millage rates to produce revenue collected by the Jasper County Treasurer, determine qualified exemptions for county residents, authorize omissions and abatements to the county tax roll, and prepare county tax roll and compute and add penalty charges to all delinquent property. Did you want me to start by just going down the line items, or is there a certain way you would like me to do it?
Just explain your budget. That's
Yes,
all
sir.
I can.
You got it.
I'm trying to be as open as possible so
Yes,
you
sir.
can.
So for the most part, my budget is staying the same as it did last year. For salaries and wages, I'm asking for, it's me and 3 other girls for $204,000. Ms. Kim is responsible for a good bit of the cost of living, the overtime, the retirement, and things like that. Office supplies, I'm asking for $3,500. Supplies and forms, $1,200. Maintenance contracts, $5,000. Office equipment, $2,000. Computer equipment, $2,000. Travel and training, $6,500. And me and Ms. Kim talked earlier, there was the row at the bottom added for consulting services. That is Azad, and he works for the county. He does work with me on FILA agreements. He's always been here, but before this item was in a different account, and Ms. Kim said she could speak more on that. But this item is being taken off of my budget.
Yes, it's being transferred back to where it was originally in Department 62, which is the interdepartmental budget. So that's where it's been. When I moved it over, I really wasn't thinking about, I know that Parker Poe Consulting helps Ms. Horton a lot with some of the FILO calculations and things like that. But he also does a lot of other services for the county. So it's more fitting that it actually be in Department 62.
Well, there goes my one question.
Well, why wouldn't it stay in that?
Because he does multiple locations. He does multiple things. He bonds, right?
But how do you follow that?
Well, it'll go back into the consulting line item in Department 62.
And is that detailed out that we can see?
If you want detail, you can get it.
Okay.
You have any other questions? Mr. Zillo? Well, how are you doing your first year?
It's going good.
Good?
Yes, sir.
You know, I went through your budget, and the only thing that really changed was the 40,000. I was confused with that, what it was. So that's that's just a guesstimate on, the 40,000 would be the guesstimate for everybody, or just her?
It
Auditors.
charges for all consulting it all at once, so.
Is that in per hour, or is that just a flat fee?
Yes, so he works on an hourly basis, but as she said, it's coded to many different areas. A lot of
Well, it's
different
all
accounts.
coded to the single department, but he does a lot of work for a lot
Yeah,
of
you
different
would
departments.
see he does everything from exploration of multi-county industrial parks to work for the auditor's office.
So that's the 40,000 entirety?
Yes, sir.
And so you use him for bylaws and all that?
Yes, sir. And
Was
he is
that
a-
done in
he's
the
a
past?
judicial.
Yes, it's been done for the last 3 or 4 years, 3 years?
Has it been that long? I think so. It's
Has-
relatively new, but. yes,
Relatively,
so-
since you've been on board?
Yes, sir. So
how-
it's nothing new, no, sir. Yes.
How long have you been on board?
2 years.
2 years.
In July. Yes, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
But Chief, I think we brought it on board in anticipation of having newly elected officials and realizing that they needed
Right.
assistance in creating the bills. So that's why we did that.
So, Kim, where's that going back to now?
It's going back to
Intergovernmental,
62
62.
and the same line item 3772, or the same account number 3772. I have a spreadsheet I'll show you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all we have. Do you have anything for us?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it. Next up is the treasurer, Mike Skinner.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
Alrighty, I'll just jump right into it. I think we've hammered over what our responsibilities are in the treasure shop. A little bit like beating a dead horse here, so. Jump right into the line items. A couple of changes. Our math wasn't quite mathing. Under the notes there for line item 2000, no, the first one there. We have a part-timer. I was told that Miss Mary cannot be full-time, so she is going to fall back to a part-time position. So that 40,000 salary for her would be removed from that 351, making it 311, and moving her 27,998.88 part-time salary down into 2001. That'll save 12,001 and 12 cents off those two line items there. So a little bit of a savings on our part there. Also, going down to the cost of living adjustment, I was going to ask a little bit beforehand. That's 19,500. I've already negotiated and talked with my employees about what their salaries are going to be for the year, and that's annotated in the very first line item. So sprinkling $19,500 into that as a cost of living adjustment, well, I'm not going to do that. Their salaries are what their salaries are, and they know this. So if that cost of living allowance is something that I have to by law list on there, well, then I'll take that 19.5. I'll do some more mathing onto their salaries to ensure that the salaries we generate will reflect what I'm asking for, regardless of the cost of living.
What percentage are we using for that?
I'm not quite entirely sure. I didn't do that COLA cost.
It was 5%, but I had factored into it some additional fringe and FICA tax, so it's a little bit higher on that line item.
And,
So,
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
after these conclude, we'd like to talk to you some about that, about the COLA that was initially recommended.
Is that, just guys, so I know, is that something you have to have on you have to show on the line item? Or
It's just a proposed cost of living, and we have some more work to do on it.
Okay, all right, just curious.
What you see is what you're not getting sometimes.
Yeah, all right. Okay, I just want you to know I don't anticipate that, and I don't want that to be put into my salary line item there. If they do have it, I'll bump down the salaries to adjust for that. All of us full-timers, so With the change from a full-time to a part-time, I'm quite certain that the insurance wages and all that will go down. I'm not quite certain exactly the wizardry behind that. I'll stick with taxes and let the HR folks figure that one out, but I know it will drop a little bit going to a part-timer. There was a line item here, equipment security, 2445. I'll do a little lighthearted argument on that. It is a building upgrade. I can't take it with me if I were to move offices, so I was wondering if that would be taken off my budget and put back onto a building budget. That'll save my line items here about $5,000. I'm more than willing to share some of the cost of that, but as far as putting it on the building upgrades to my office, I would argue a little bit against that.
That's line item 2445, you said?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Let's see. I would also like to bring up and I apologize, Kim, for not getting into this before. I know we talked about it a little bit, a revenue line for the treasurer's office. The decal fee and the check fees, bounce check fees, the average conservative guesstimate from 28 to 32,000 annually. I can provide detailed numbers on that, reports on that. So I was just thinking, add a revenue line to the treasurer's office for about 30,000. Again, that will help kind of offset maybe some of these. I can go down more on the office equipment and some of those other line items.
So we have that in a separate, like in 170, which is more or less taxes and the treasurer's revenue anyway. So it's in a separate department called 170, or Department 170.
Can we just tie that into my office so that it's kind of specific to that? It is supposed to be the treasurer's. And I can use that to offset some of the bank fees that we
follow
have.
it too.
Say again?
That way we can follow it too.
Exactly.
Yeah, the decal is a general fund. It's for the county,
It is not
so.
for the county.
Does that go through the treasurer's office?
No, sir, it doesn't.
No?
There's
The
actually,
statute says it goes to the local government.
Okay.
that's,
That's
No.
been something that I have discussed for 2 years now.
and I've asked for an attorney general decision and still haven't gotten it. I don't want a David Tedder decision, I'd like an attorney general decision.
Well, my opinion is just as good as the Attorney General. I've been practicing longer than he has.
Enough, just enough. We can discuss it later.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, Mr. Skinner makes a good point. He wants to show the revenues that his office brings in, and you'll hear that over and over from different offices, and we could always show you those revenue sources. But sometimes for accounting purposes, it can't be put back in the budget, but they can be isolated so you can see what those revenues are. Everything from, we'll hear from the sheriff with, traffic fines and tickets and so forth, and you can try to get you all those information about what each department generates in revenue as well.
Well, in the future, we're gonna have a quarterly workshop. At that time, you can bring it out, so quarterly we'll be able to, the treasurer will be able to come before us and say, this is what.
Right. And just for the public's benefit, for all of you, some of these offices do make funds, right? Some actual revenues that aren't necessarily reflected on their expenditure page, and that's what I think Mr. Skinner's trying to get across.
Okay, thank you. That's exactly, just a little showcase in areas of what we got.
Just as you bring up a good subject right now, is we anticipate, or I anticipate, as long as the council goes along with me, that quarterly we will have all the elected officials come before us to go over their budget, which has never been done before. So everybody's gonna be able to justify their budget or tell them where they need more or less or whatever. So, thank you.
Is it?
Sorry. Yours.
That's all I have, so if there's any questions, I'll try and answer them best I can.
Well, Mr. Van Giesen?
So on the salaries, you're going, was it 299, you're going to 350, what is it, 204 now?
311. With the
So it'll be
27,000.
311, yeah, you're gonna change that. Okay. How many people is that for?
Five, that's for 5. And the part-timer.
And the part-time is 12,100.
No, that part-timer is 27,998.88, 12,000 less than the 40.
Okay. Anything more, Mr. Daly?
I'm good.
Mr. Rosillo?
So only a part-time employee, how many hours do they work part-time?
She's no more than 30, we keep her about 28.
I'm just trying to figure out the benefit of having a part-time. I understand the cost, but thank you.
Wasn't preferable, but she's already retiree, so we gotta work within the rules that we're given. It's a pretty valuable asset, so I don't want to just cover those.
Last year, you had in the budget for equipment, money for, you had $2,000 in there. And at the time you said you were buying scanners. Did you ever buy those scanners?
The check scanners, yes, we did,
You did?
yes.
Okay, you did buy them.
That allows us to do a remote deposit with the checks, paper checks we get in. We had one on hand that was sketchy at best, so we caught up and had some enough that we can actually handle the volume of the checks that we get.
Okay. I thank you very much. Do you have any other questions? No? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And last but not least, election board. Ms. Bostic.
Hi, good evening.
How are you?
Good. You have my extension?
Yes, ma'am, I'm putting it up right now, I was gonna tell you to walk slowly.
That's all right. I have my chairman here and my vice chair
Would you like to
and my,
introduce him?
my chairman, Mr. Dave Mitchell, my vice chair, Ms. Cheryl Dobson, and board member, Ms. Mary Altizer, and board member, Mrs. Hilda Stevenson Stewart.
Well, you brought power.
Yes, I got a quorum. Okay, my budget. I gave you a copy of my budget in front of you of what we're asking for this upcoming year. We're hoping to get a 5% cost of living raise for my staff and myself, poll workers and drivers. You're looking at an increase as well. Poll workers pay as well as the delivery guys. Right now, we have 4 gentlemen that deliver using 2 trucks. We normally use 3 trucks to get the equipment out. Unfortunately, we didn't have 2 additional drivers for this election that we're having now. So we just used the 2 trucks and 4 drivers. Next year is going to be our mid-year elections. The statewide elections coming up in June, and a primary, if necessary, in June as well, of 2026, and of course our November big general. This past budget, we've had several special elections, which has been very costly, and I'm sure my election expense line is probably in the negative.
Sorry.
Okay. What is that, 2850? That on there?
I gotta figure out how to get to the next page.
So far, you've spent 82,000.
Oh, yeah, so far.
So far.
We get some revenue from the state. I think we got about, 39,000 towards the primary and some of the general election of 2024. And then we get payments from City of Hardyville to conduct their elections, and the town of Ridgeland election will be this year in November. So elections are getting very costly. Okay, so I want to point that out to you, and we're hoping, I'm going to talk to my board about getting another person in the office. Right now we have an open position for an admin assistant that we'll be advertising shortly, but we probably want to advertise for an additional, so it'll be myself and 3 additional staff, because we're hiring part-time to come in and help us get ready for these elections. And with the overtime that they're making and the hours they're making, basically they're due some benefits, because they're making pretty good hours
and, we need the service. So I would like to board, again, we'll talk about that in the future, about the additional person. Office equipment, we're gonna need some additional voting machines due to the growth in our Margaritaville, Hilton Head Lakes, and Sun City. So that expense is gonna be coming up. Our maintenance agreement is gonna increase. The equipment we received last year was under contract for 1 year, that the state would cover those costs for maintenance, preventive maintenance. Now that burden is gonna fall on the county. Make sure that maintenance agreements and preventive maintenance services and software and hardware update is done on the voting system. So that's why we have an increase there. I'm gonna piggyback on Mr. Skinner about that building repair, that 20,000. I don't know that it need to be shown in my budget, because that's a county expense and not a voter registration expense. So that's something, and that'll drop my budget down by 20,000 if it's pulled away out of my line item and put in a county line item instead. Any questions for me?
Mr. Van Giesen.
So we're doing, is it a 5% cost of living, and then a cost of living adjustment from 9,900 to 11,000?
Yes, sir. We put both in there because sometimes we don't get what we ask, and the county give us what they want us to have.
Right.
So.
Okay. Thank you for that. And Kim, what about the 20,000? Is that something we would pull out of her thing also, or?
We haven't in the past, so.
We haven't in the past, and the director is gonna, correct me, I'm sure if I'm wrong, but I think many years ago, I think the board actually put it in your budget because you were trying to show the council a need for some improvements. And so I think it can go either way, Mr. Evans.
We need improvements. Hasn't happened.
They need improvements, however, they don't want that, they don't want that dollar amount showing.
We
in the
need a
budget. I understand.
building on the north end as well as the south end. Okay, and I did put that in your packet as well, what the numbers are looking like for the increase of voter registration in Jasper County, and why we need to get a satellite office down here immediately. Okay, we need to satisfy the voters on this part of the county. And again, we need to get a new office in Jasper County on Ridgeland side, I'm sorry, for voter registration. It's too small and it's just getting worse. So I appreciate, we spoke to the city council here in Hardyville about it. And I think we need to work together with them and trying to come up with a solution for the Hardyville side. And I can work with council and my board to come up with a solution for Ridgeland. It's needed.
Okay.
It's needed almost 15 years ago, and nothing has happened. I'm about to retire.
Me too. Thank you, dear, I appreciate it.
Me three.
Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Arzillo, since you're expert on this,
You
let's
too, Mr.
let's see
Kemp.
what happens. No,
So the important question, I mean, have you got a date when you retire?
They keep saying no.
The answer is no. The answer is no. That's a good answer. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody knows we need these offices that we're talking about, and there's been a lot of talk about it for a long time.
Long
Keep
time.
Pushing, and hopefully we can make some headway on it. You know how I feel about it.
Is there anything in the works?
There may be. I wouldn't speak it out in the open today,
Not today?
but
Okay.
if I say somebody's working on, we're all working.
Okay,
And-
are we
and I-
working, can I ask this, are we working on an office for Ridgeland? Are we working on an office for a satellite in Hardyville? Are we doing one, or are we doing both?
Why don't we say we haven't got that far? Why don't we say, if we know it's gonna have to be a joint venture between Hardyville and Jasper, at
Okay.
least on my part,
Okay,
what I speak for.
okay,
But yeah,
okay,
and I know you're gonna ask.
okay,
me
I got
that.
my boots on the ground, okay.
But anyway, Janine, of course, thank you for all you've done and your board and
Thank you.
everybody. We all know how hard elections are.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I just wanna point out, 25% increase in voters in Hardyville alone. You know, we get about 100 plus per month. Okay, so keep that in mind. This is getting real serious, real fast. Okay,
That's Hardyville alone?
Hardyville alone.
That's where the growth is in the whole county.
Mhm. Okay, 88% present of Jasper County voters voting in Hardyville precincts, okay? So again, the growth is definitely getting there, and that's in your packet as well. All that info is in your packet,
Thank you.
okay, to look over. Anything from the board?
Are you, wait, you haven't, you
I'm
forgot about
sorry.
me.
Okay, Mr. Kemp.
Question for you. Maintenance contract, what is the exact dollar amount?
The exact, I don't know that actually till I get the invoice. Because like I said, the first year when we get new equipment, that's on the state. And that second year, we get the invoice, and it will increase based on the fact that the state covered the first year, and now we have to cover the second, and we're covering all the machines. So everything we get new, if we get 10 new machines, the state will cover those 10 for that 1 year. And after that, the 10 will be added, to this existing contract.
So you need 10 more machines?
Oh, I need more than that. I'm just saying, if we got that amount, I'm just giving an estimate.
How many machines do you think you need?
We probably gonna need a good, with scanners, probably another 4, which is, what you use to cash your ballot. And as far as the, BMDs to mark your ballot, we're gonna probably need about 15 to 20. And we need additional poll workers due to the growth. So that's more money. That's why we're asking for more money when it comes to our, poll workers. And we only have 1 van, so we rent 2 vans to make the deliveries of the voting equipment.
Well, we've got them. You got the vans now.
I have
What do you
one
want
van.
more? No.
I have 1 van.
I thought you had 2.
I have a minivan.
Oh,
It's nothing.
the one that you lay down. Just to let you know, there is a concern about the offices. But I was on the board 8 years ago, 9 years ago, and I went out myself and asked every church in the area, just for a precinct. Do you know how many I got? 0. And I went down there and looked, there's nothing there, period. So we just have to wait for the future, because Hardyville is starting to change things, so that's how it's gonna be. It's needed. I always think of the bird nests. So, anyway.
Yeah, it's just a concern to me because, you know, you have candidates, you have individuals that want poll watchers in a building you can't accommodate. Then they wanna give me grief because I can't accommodate, so.
Anyway,
Okay,
is there anything else? Any other questions? Do you have any questions of the board? I think we had discussion about, we realize at least Joe and I realize, and I think Chris, then he's.
I'm not sitting here.
Well, you just let me say it, you know? Boy, you're so impatient sometimes. Anyway, I think we all know it. So
Okay.
don't think it's not falling on deaf ears. It's monumental. Everything's monumental. So anyway, I thank you very much yourself.
thank you, I appreciate it.
I just tell you, there was somebody that said, once you're on the election board, you never want to get off. It's the most pleasing thing in the world.
Oh, okay. So you're coming.
Most discouraging when you have 1,000 people show up for an election.
Absolutely. Don't forget the runoff is tomorrow. Go out and vote.
I will make sure that happens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, now that we've done that, Mr. Holger.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sure you have only pleasant memories of serving on county council as well, is that right?
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
I do, I enjoy it. It's the one little thank you that makes everything okay.
And just to follow up, you all have made some significant progress in trying to find a location in Richland for voter registration. And you'll be reviewing all that stuff in July when you do all your capital improvement planning for your facilities. And I think that one might be okay. Ms. Burgess, you wanted to run through a couple things that have changed?
Yes.
Could we just ask one question? On this cost of living adjustment, how do we figure out what it is? I mean, it was 5%, now I just found out this FICA is included. So, for example, on the treasurer, if I took the $351,000, it would come out to $17,550. But that's not including FICA, I guess.
Right.
So it would be
Correct.
$2,000 of FICA.
Well, it's, I don't have it in front of me right now. Does it have, any overtime or anything on that? Because that would be included as well in that particular line item. I'm trying to find something here.
Mr. Kemp, you're correct, the 5% is an additional, is greater to pay for those items as well.
To budget for the FICA, to budget for retirement, to budget for.
And she has a percentage, if you can find it, as to what she applies that to. So, we can review that with you. We can also just share with you now that the proposed, cost of living increase that we had placed in the budget was 5%. Of course, that's always, dependent on how your budget goes. And, we wanted to have some more discussion about that with you. In addition to proposed 5%, we'll provide you with some individual employees that we're recommending receive a greater increase than that. But food for thought about the 5%. We've had some questions from council members and others about the CPI and how do we base the COLA. Quite frankly, we look around at what other places are doing, try to gauge the environment because we want to be competitive for employees in other jurisdictions. And I think Ms. Burgess can probably share with you some comparables around us. But ultimately, I will recommend to you that the CPI currently with the Association of Counties that we receive each year was 2.9%. So if that COLA were not 5% and were 3%, you would have basically a savings of about $500,000 in this budget.
Well, saying that, I don't like blanket COLA across the board sometimes, or above that, that's fine. I think that we should include some other merit increases in there and leave it up to you to decide how you distribute it. So,
Mr. Kipp, I really appreciate that confidence, but that is really not consistent with our pay plan that you've adopted. So if we want to go in that direction, we could certainly workshop that out with you and try to get to that direction.
why wouldn't it be in that direction? I'm just for.
Because our pay plan is a step and grade system. It's not a pay for performance system. It's not like that. And so you adopt the pay plan that an independent consultant produces for you, and then we administer that plan. Without any framework or guidelines, I don't want that responsibility about doing those raises without those guidelines in place. Now, another thing that I had talked about that we have not had time to ever implement was an alternative to doing across the board COLA is to pick a wage level, perhaps 50,000 or below, and offer increases of a set dollar amount for some positions. Because the problem with across the board COLAs is that those who make more money receive greater increase, right? And you can argue it both ways. But that is something that we did work with and ran some numbers with, but did not have time to pull it together this time. So that's why we put a blanket COLA in there, establishing a value. How we distribute that value, there are many ways to do it.
I think we should look at that as one of the many workshops that we have to get a merit system in here.
Yes, sir. It is number one time for another pay study, a pay plan. We haven't done that for several years. And to adopt a pay plan that you feel comfortable with, that has specific direction in it, would bring staff comfort. Pay for performance without a detailed plan on how to do so is a dangerous thing.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So, I'm sorry.
So, we did a calculation, based
Camp,
on,
I'm gonna sit down.
Okay.
and if you don't mind, I'm gonna sit. Can you hear me? So, since I'm working this computer. So I did a calculation today, just sort of looking at different percentages for, cost of living. So these are each department, it includes salary and wages, overtime, part-time salaries. So if you go, I had a 5%, which if you, calculate what an average of what FICA and the retirement would be, it would be 6.3825%, against the salary and wages, overtime, part-time. And then, sorry, this thing is annoying, but it keeps 4.5%, 4%, and then 3%. Thank you. So each of these did each department, each line item, and then the ones that are highlighted yellow, I will say that previously, when you see that salary and line item on the budget itself, line 2000, that includes unfilled budgeted positions. So if they were not hired as of July 1, they weren't working for the county as of that date, they would not receive a cost of living increase. So these ones that are highlighted in yellow have been adjusted for the salary and wages that are included in that line item for unfilled positions, budgeted positions. So there were a few of those. And the total salary, wages, overtime, and part-time is $23,132,500. This number, which is awkward because it has no commas in it, it is what is currently in the budget. And it is $1,383,900. So it's approximately 5.98% of that salary, wages, overtime, part-time. So as I said, I went back, I calculated what 5% of pure 5% with the 6.382 adjusting for the budgeted unfilled positions. The amount is actually $1,476,000, including FICA and the others. So as you go down, you can see that 4.5 would be $1,328,000, which would be a savings of $55,000. 4% would be a savings of $202,000, and 3% would be a savings of, as Mr. Fulgham said, nearly $500,000. So this was a little, I realized as I was looking at this that if you just pick up that salary and wage line item, you're not picking up everything because there's part-time, there's overtime, and also those budgeted unfilled positions. So this is a more accurate calculation for each of those percentages.
Will you send that to us?
Sure. I will be glad to. So that is the, and then we talked about changes. So some of these changes have been, we've talked about, sorry, this is awkward because I'm actually looking at my desktop in originally. So I have to kind of go back and forth here with a careful finger, not to hit it too many times. So the first reading was $66,912,500. The clerk of court came in. He had some additions to revenue. We also recalculated the revenue for Cherry Point, which went down, which decreased. And then there were some other revenue that we talked about. We've already talked about these changes that were made, bond proceeds, watercraft, etc. And the one that keeps changing as we make these changes is this cash carry forward. So at one point this was over $4 million, but because we've made these changes here, that some of these, they're not going to be reflected in what you've already received as far as your budget worksheet. So because you still have only the first reading. So these changes have been made, and it's kind of awkward to show it, but what happens is there's increases, decreases, some salary and wage increases of the consulting services for planning department. Those were moved to a line item in 62, interdepartmental, here, so they were basically netted to zero. We had the additional debt that we added, and then the clerk of court, as I mentioned, has made changes that's not reflected in any total budget that you've seen yet. And there were some changes in vehicle lease, and the biggest thing in this right now, if we changed it from 5% to 3%, that savings is $498,000. So that decreases this number, which was originally about, like I said, 4.8, I believe, and now, not originally, but in the second one that we talked about, the budget workshop before this, it was around 4.8, now it's at 3.5. So that has decreased somewhat. And last year, with the budget amendments, it was over $9 million.
Let me just clarify things for people.
Yes.
When you take cash carry forward, right, lesser is better.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure.
Absolutely.
Well, it looks like when you're talking, it looks like we're going the wrong way, but we are going the right way.
Yes, sir, you're budgeting to potentially spend your fund balance or your savings.
Right.
And we're trying to get that down.
So, again, I'm sure there's going to be some other changes. I know that there've been, Chief Wills has some changes that he mentioned, so that are reductions. And so there are others, but as we go along, I'm keeping track here, and then we'll put it in when we have our second reading.
Wednesday, right?
Wednesday. I will have whatever changes have been proposed and or decided upon in that reading for you. With this to explain it.
When will we get that?
That's a good question. It might be Wednesday morning.
Yeah, it would have to be tomorrow in order for you to have a chance to look at it.
Yes.
And that's why we wanted to have an opportunity to explain some of the things we're working on. We're working as hard as we can to make improvements to the budget, and it's hard for you to have the opportunity to review it, catch up with it. That's why we like the interaction, to be able to tell you what changes we made to the budget, so you're not finding them on your own. I guess the question would be, you have some other items you need to go through?
You know what's frustrating? It's just being under the gun with all this stuff.
I fully understand it. We feel the same way. We're trying to give the best product we can, but knowing, and Mr. Kemp has some experience with this, knowing that you'll do the best budget. Months from now, it will be a whole lot smoother for you.
And we already have the first reading of an adjustment already, just in case. So if we don't get it settled, we can do the budget, like placeholder, and then correct it another month, take another month.
Do you have any
So
other?
you're saying if we don't get it by July 1st?
We have to do it by July 1st.
We can amend it.
We amend it by August. Because that's when the dollar amount has to be put in for the treasurer and auditor to give us the evaluation.
Oh, yes.
Is that it then?
So, well, that's included in the changes.
Okay.
We're transferring the admin vehicle, so we won't have a new vehicle for the clerk of court. Clerk of court uses that vehicle quite often. So we're gonna transfer the lease that is in, the lease expense and the vehicle maintenance and the gas and fuel into, from Department 51 into the clerk of court. So you'll see that as well. And that'll be part of the fiscal year 26, but we're actually going to go ahead and do that transfer, so you'll see some expenditures for the month of June in the clerk of court's budget. And I did have,
And that'll be in for Wednesdays, you'll have that in there?
So I do have, answers to Mr. Raoul's questions. Chief Wells was scrubbing his budget, and I was unable to get his answers in here. He has provided those. So I don't know if you would like to wait and get the entire package, or if you would like to have a copy of this, or if you'd like to go over this, or how would you like to do these? I received yours.
I know, I
This morning.
didn't wanna do it over the weekend.
Yeah. So, but it went to a personal email for some reason, so I didn't see it until actually this afternoon. So Mr. Fulton told me about it, and he tried to forward it to me, but when I found it in my personal email, it was, much more.
I don't even know, have your personal email.
Apparently you do.
I guess I do, someplace along the line.
Well,
Who knows?
Sorry,
I would
I
love
That's
to
didn't.
have
okay,
that.
that's okay, but that's why, I didn't even know it was there, to be honest, until later today.
I would love to have that.
I have a suggestion. You can hand these paper answers out to you now. They may get better, as you say, right?
Yes, there'll be more complete answers for the, emergency services and fire.
Right,
And when we have those, we'll again distribute those to you.
that'd be good.
But I guess we need some direction from the council this evening about exactly what you want to see for the second reading. And that would be just the items that we mentioned. We take care of the vehicle for the court issues, we don't have to worry about that. We're trying to get admin vehicle to take care of it. Ms. Burgess, it will just down to the proposed cost of living increase, is that it?
That, and if there are any, other I know that Mr. Kemp recommended some changes in your email. But I don't know if they've been decided upon, there was some changes.
That was just, those were my suggestions on it, and it, based on the fact that what I did at the last meeting, saying that let's put it in a pot, if you can do it. Put it in a pot, so if somebody needs something, we can make a choice, and in case we have something that comes up that hasn't been anticipated, we have a chance to have some money for it. Because at the end, if I think it was, we had some, I think, well, this year, there was budgeting on the fire area, I would say. We had a $3.2 million budget, and we've only fulfilled $100 million. And that's, some of it's because you anticipated something that didn't happen because it took too long. And I'm not saying, but we at least identify it.
You understand that? Thank you. It's all good ideas. It's just about the matter of timing. Do you want to discuss that and change that prior to budget? Do you want to address that in a budget amendment thereafter? But we just want to be sure we're giving you understand what we're providing you.
I would like to, I think I've talked to the council, and correct me if I'm wrong from the three of us here, the $1 million taken out of the sheriff's.
All right, sir. Well, I think that's.
Is that how you want it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, $1 million out of that.
And that would be that new personnel line item.
Yeah.
$1.5 million total. His number was $1.5 million, her number was $1 million.
Just $1 million, well, her number was $1.5 million or $1 million?
It was $1 million.
It was $1 million, it wasn't $1.5 million, I don't think.
What I'm saying is, his number was $1.5 million, her number was $1 million. What he gave us the other night was $1.5 million.
That's not in the budget though, only the $1 million is.
Only the $1 million. He asked for it, but it wasn't in the budget.
That was his request.
Okay, I was under the impression that the $1 million should have been $1.5 million. And it was just put in as $1 million, because she didn't have the number at that time.
No.
That's all I'm saying.
No, sir, what happened was that the $1.5 million was only salary and wages. When you added all of the other equipment, vehicles, et cetera, it was 2.7 or 3.7 million. So I didn't know how to, that was a lot, to try to determine how to, balance. So
I got it.
the prior year had been $1 million, so I put $1 million in.
All right.
And the prior year, that had funded 10 new deputies. So that's why I went with the $1 million.
Thank you.
Mr. Rosillo.
In the last meeting, you touched on
so far. What are we thinking on the contingency fund, or the funding of it, or the lack of, or where are we at?
You're talking about fund balance. We don't like to use the word contingency, that sounds like a slush fund.
Yeah, well, emergency fund, and I know there's a proper term for it, of course, but it all looks like the same dollars to me, used for the same thing. Go ahead.
Well, and we've talked about this, being very conservative, we want to get that number down. We budgeted almost 9 million or over last year and did not make it all. And that has only happened, previously that I know of back in 2008. So we want to shore it up, and we want to be sure that we have as much operating, cash as we can if we have a severe event, right? That's a no-brainer, and we're working toward that. The easiest thing to do that, the way to accomplish that is to reduce that fund balance, rather than getting it. So if we do the $1 million, Mr. Kemp, that you spoke of, and if we don't have to worry about the vehicle for the clerk of court, we did that, and if we propose the 3% COLA versus the 5% COLA and scrub those numbers, I think that would be a good base to bring to you on Wednesday. May not be perfect, but I think it'll be a good effort to get there. And then you'll still have the benefit of having a budget workshop prior to the meeting to discuss if you wanted to do anything else at the second reading.
Well, we have two more budget, next week we have two workshops.
Yes.
One is the affordable housing, which we can include the budget in there for questions.
Yes, sir.
And then on the 11th, we have the school board coming in, and that's another time we can do. And I'll discuss that during the portion of comments and discussion.
Well, I really appreciate your flexibility because it's often hard with us working because we hear things, but we don't really know if everybody agrees and what we should do. And we're trying to cut things as we move forward.
Well, that's our problem too, because we're new at it. I'm not new at it so much. I guess I am new at this. This is a whole different way of looking at a budget than before.
Well, and you've had some fantastic questions. Thank you. You've spent a lot of time researching them, but that's making us all better, so I really appreciate that.
But I really I would like to see, this is what I like to see, going on what Joe said, or Mr. Orsillo said, is that we cut some of the stuff that's in there, that we constantly put in 300,000, we only use, put that into that budget, right? And that raises it up, and then they have to come back and we'll have a better discussion then on saying, okay, this is the project, rather than do it through the budget time. You know, for example, if you use $30,000 every year and you budgeted $200,000 every year, let's give them $30,000 because that's what seems to be done. Put the other stuff into a contingency fund or a whatever you want to call it, and we have to make a decision later on as we go along to say, is this important enough to take away from the budget or add to the budget or whatever we want to do with it.
Mr. Kemp, I appreciate that. I don't think we have enough time to flesh that out for your Wednesday meeting.
I understand that.
And you understand that what you're proposing is revenue neutral to the budget. It just has better budget control, in your opinion, right?
Right.
So I think we can get there
Well,
later.
that's what I'm saying. We know the big stuff.
Yes, sir.
You know, $1 million of big stuff. There's more, but I don't want to talk or say something without everybody the people being here. We've discussed it, I think, in my conversation with each one of them, but I just want everybody here so it's made public.
We understand and we appreciate it, your patience, and it's an awkward process for everybody, but I think we're making great strides. We will reduce the budget by the amounts that we spoke of tonight, and we will bring that back to you for potentially second reading on Wednesday.
Now, is you taking into effect the treasurer when he's up and down? The treasurer, when he said he didn't like the cost of living increase or whatever, did that get involved or?
Oh, that's your direction, if you want us to include that or not.
Yeah.
Well, he's asking for less money than he's asking, than you're giving him. Am I correct with that?
Yes.
I was under the impression, I'm sorry, but I was under the impression that he did not, I can talk to him about it, but his personnel looked like they had the same salaries. so I'm not sure. I need to ask him about that.
Oh, I
In an
understand
email he
that.
sent to me,
That's
there was
something
I was
We will
confused,
straighten
I
that out.
think,
We
so.
will meet with them and talk to them about that. We don't have a very short window to put it together, but we'll try to get that together for you tomorrow. Ms. Burgess, you'd like me to distribute them?
Oh, they're right here, so I figured, I just put the 3 on top.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're late.
If you would, could you, from now on, if you're gonna give something like this, could you also send it to us later on, at least me, in a file? So I
An
can put it
email,
on my
yes, sir.
computer, rather than me scan it?
Yes, sir.
Would you,
Doesn't-
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it just, I scanned the second, it doesn't come out well.
Would you like to wait until I have the Chief Wells's
That's fine.
responses and then I can send it all to you? Okay.
Mr. Van Giesen, do you have anything else to say at that time?
Not at this time, thank you.
Mr. Orzillo, do you have anything?
No,
Mr. Kemp, yes, I do. Thank you very much, appreciate it. I think we've come a long way, at least maybe not in this budget, but from the previous budgets to this budget, I see a whole different attitude and how we're dealing with it. And I thank everyone for that. I'd like to have a motion to adjourn the workshop.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the workshop.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any comments? Hearing no comments, all in favor say aye and raise their hand. Aye. Go against. The motion is passed. Thank you. I'm going to have